"It's just my favorite," she said. The next night, I saw her in that same dress in someone else's wedding photos. I remember the first time I laid eyes on Emily in that navy blue wrap dress. Satin sheen catching the afternoon sun as she laughed at some joke I can't even recall. We'd met at Chris's rooftop party, the kind where everyone else is nursing craft beers and I was nursing a crush. Her hair fell in waves around her shoulders, and that dress hugged her curves in just the right way. When she told me it was her favorite, I didn't blink. Of course it was. It suited her perfectly. A week later, I was idly scrolling through a link the groom, Josh, had sent me. "Hey, it's a private album, but since you're in the wedding party..." Out of habit, I accepted the Facebook group invite, thinking I'd check the seating chart or the playlist someone threw together. But then I saw the thumbnail grid, photos of people dancing, toasts, dad jokes in caption form, and then, there she was, Emily in that same navy wrap dress. My stomach lurched. There wasn't a caption identifying who she was, so I clicked. Photo after photo, there she was, leaning in close to Josh. A laugh, a leaning-in kiss on the cheek. Another shot, her hand on his lower back, his arms snaking around her waist, her dress bunched where she sat astride his lap. My heart pounded. I tapped my temple, hoping it was just a weird angle or a shot forgetting context. But then I scrolled further and froze at a full-lipped kiss. Lips parted, eyes half closed, faces turned away from the camera but too intimate to be anything but real. I shut my laptop, hands shaking, sweat prickling along my hairline. The dress looked different now, darker, almost accusatory. Emily hadn't mentioned attending Josh's cousin's wedding. She'd been vague about weekend plans, just catching up with old friends. And I'd believed her, happy that she had a circle I hadn't fully met yet. Now, late at night, I examined every message thread between us. Nothing. No references to weddings, no photos from the weekend. I stared at her last selfie, the one she sent after brunch on Sunday, grinning over a stack of pancakes, and felt something inside me crack. That dress had become a symbol of trust. Now it was a signpost pointing toward a lie. I didn't reach out to her that night. Instead, I sat on my couch, the glow of my laptop dead, and tried to make sense of the sudden silence where her voice used to be. Emily has her secrets, and I'm staring at them in pixels and pixels of betrayal. The next morning, sunlight slid through the blinds and landed on my phone, still buzzing with notifications I hadn't checked. My hands hovered over the unlock screen for the longest time before I finally gave in. There, sandwiched between a group chat ping and the weather app, was Emily's name. No message preview, just her green bubble staring back at me like a dare. I swiped open her thread. It was empty. No good morning memes, no follow-up selfies from the previous weekend. My thumb hovered over the blank text field. I wanted to demand an explanation, to force a confession. Instead, I typed, "Hey, did you have fun catching up with your friends this weekend?" and deleted it. Then, "Hope you slept well." Deleted again. I stared at the blinking cursor, feeling more desperate than I ever had, a novelist frozen at the climax of his own story. Finally, I pushed send. It rang through to her phone, and I imagined her wide awake in some hotel suite or her friend's apartment, the same dress carefully folded on a chair. The air felt too thick. I was suffocating inside my apartment. Minutes crawled by. Every ringtone on my phone became a potential tactic. She could have called me, she could have texted. But the silence stretched until I choked on it. I put the phone down and went to the kitchen to make coffee, pacing like a caged animal. The coffee maker gurgled impatiently. When my phone buzzed at last, my heart leaped, and then sank. It was Josh, the groom. "About your invite," he wrote. "Sorry, I messed up the permissions. You actually haven't joined the album yet. Let me add you now." A knot formed in my gut. I tapped the link, expecting empty screenshots. He'd removed the photos. But instead, the album appeared. Just updated with even more pictures. Shots of Emily whispering into Josh's ear, of her tilting her head up for another kiss. This time full on the lips. It was worse than the first batch. Here she was laughing with her hand pressed flat against his chest, and in one shot I could see Josh's fiancée glaring from across the dance floor. My chest tightened. I was wading through evidence, but I felt farther from the truth than ever. I closed the laptop again, this time letting it shut with a resolute click. Maybe I was digging too deep. Maybe I should trust her when she got home, look into her eyes. But after everything, Trust tasted like ash. I knew I had to see her in person, to feel the temperature of her skin and watch her eyes flicker. I needed to decide. Pull the thread and watch everything unravel, or swallow the doubt and pretend I never saw a thing. Either way, when she walked through that door tonight, nothing would be the same. The hours before she got home were the worst. I paced the apartment like a sentry guarding against a threat I couldn't name. Every creak in the hallway made me jump. Every car door slamming outside sounded like Emily's key turning in the lock. My mind ran through possibilities. What would she say? Would she apologize? Would she scream? Or would she laugh it off, call me paranoid? I tried to busy myself. Wiped down the counters, straightened the throw pillows, even reorganized my bookshelf by height instead of alphabet. Nothing helped. The clock on the wall ticked in a deliberate, excruciating rhythm. I found myself staring at it, willing time to move faster. At some point, I fell into the chair by the window, phone in hand, and called my best friend Mark. "Dude, I don't know what to do," I whispered, glancing at the front door as if it would fly open at any moment. I told him about the photos, about Emily in that dress with another guy's arms around her, about Josh's fiancée, the glare, about the way my gut twisted every time I closed my eyes. "Confront her," Mark said. "Stop hiding behind silence. Demand answers." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. It made sense, but the idea of facing her felt like stepping into a storm. What if she turned on me? What if she had an alibi, a twin sister story, or, "Oh, that was a costume party," or some bullshit excuse that sounded crazier than the reality? When my phone buzzed again, I almost didn't answer. It was her. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought I might cough it up, but the message was innocuous. "Hey, I got home a little later than expected. Can't wait to see you." My chest tightened at the emoji. Was this confession or mockery? I stared at the words, the simple blue heart that I recognized from 1,000 texts we'd sent. My fingers hovered over the screen. I could reply with a smiley face, play it cool, pretend I never saw anything. Or I could open Pandora's box. I stood up, phone in hand, and walked to the mirror in the hallway. There I was. Bloodshot eyes, clenched jaw, clothes rumpled from pacing. I took a deep breath, 1, 2, 3, and typed, "We need to talk when you get in." It felt like dropping a bomb in the quiet of the room. I hit send before I could chicken out. The message sat there, unread, as I moved to the couch and sat, rigid, waiting for the moment I'd been dreading and craving all at once. Tonight, either I'd get my answers or I'd destroy whatever was left of us. The lock clicks just as the tension in my chest becomes unbearable. I hear her keys scrape against the hardwood, the door swings open, and there she is. Emily. Hair pulled back in a loose bun, the same navy dress folded neatly over her arm like nothing's wrong. She pauses in the threshold, taking in my stance, rigid shoulders, phone still glowing in my hand, eyes wide and unblinking. "Hey," she says softly, stepping inside. Her voice should be comforting, but it registers in my brain like static. "I didn't mean to worry you. Traffic was brutal, and then Monica's mom stuck us talking forever about her garden renovations." She sets down her bag and glances at the coffee table, where I'd scattered glasses and coasters like a crime scene. I swallow. "Where did you go yesterday?" The words come out sharper than I'd intended. She tilts her head, cautious. "Out with some friends. Monica, Sarah, you know them." I step forward, closing the distance between us. "Which friends? The ones from high school, or the ones from your college book club?" My voice cracks. "You told me you were at brunch, and then just..." Her brow furrows. "Brunch? I left after that and went to Josh's cousin's wedding." She reaches into her purse. "I thought I told you." A flash of confusion crosses her face as she digs out her phone and scrolls, not finding our texts. "I swear I messaged you. Let me show you." She taps her screen, hesitates, then locks the phone. "It's weird. Did that message not send?" My heart hammers. Maybe it didn't. I drop my gaze to the floor. "But it's not just the message, Emily." I pull out my laptop, its screen lit with the album, the images frozen in betrayal. I set it on the coffee table and open it to the same page where I'd first seen her kissing Josh. My finger hovers over the photos as if I can erase them by touch. She looks at the screen, her face draining of color. "Oh God." She grips the back of the couch, her knuckles whitening. "That's not... Josh was consoling me. My heel broke on the dance floor and he helped me. I was upset. We hugged and he kissed my cheek. That's it. I shake my head, voice low. A cheek kiss? Then why are there pictures of you with his lips on yours? I click forward to 2 shots later in the album. Her head tilted back, his hand tangled in her hair. The speed of her breath changes. I swear I can hear it across the room. She presses a hand to her mouth, eyes glistening. I don't know. I wasn't thinking straight. It was the dress and the wine, and I felt seen. She kneels in front of the laptop, trying to close the window. I catch her hand gently, and she freezes. Don't, I whisper. Silence settles like a fog between us. I study her face, the guilt, the shame, the fear. Tell me it stopped at the cheek, I say. She looks down, voice barely audible. It did. I swear it did. I pulled away, but he leaned in before I could stop him. I didn't push him off fast enough. She lifts her eyes to me, tears brimming. I know it sounds like an excuse. I stand, backing away, my throat tight. It sounds like you cheated, I say, and the words shatter the space around us. She falls silent, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, she whispers. Her apology echoes in the empty room, and I realize that sometimes sorry isn't enough. You can't stitch back the fabric of trust once it's torn. I close the laptop with deliberate care and set it on the floor. I need time, I say, turning away. In the quiet aftermath, I feel the weight of every lie balanced against the flicker of what we once had. The dress lies folded on the armchair, a symbol, a memory, and now, the final stitch in a story we can't unwrite. The apartment felt impossibly quiet once she'd gone to her room. The soft click of her door, a punctuation mark on everything I thought I knew. I sank onto the couch, the leather cool beneath me, and stared at the navy dress draped over the armchair. It reminded me of how easy it had been to fall in love with her smile, and how devastatingly easy it was to have that trust ripped away. My phone buzzed with an incoming text from Monica, Josh's cousin, asking if Emily was okay after all that drama. I stared at the message for a long moment, fingers hovering over the screen. I didn't reply. I didn't know whether I wanted to defend Emily or distance myself from the mess altogether. I remembered the first time I saw her in that dress, how she'd spun around and the fabric had caught the light. Back then, her laughter had seemed like a promise that nothing could ever go wrong. Now, that same laughter felt like the punchline of a joke I hadn't been let in on. By late afternoon, I forced myself to go out for a walk. The streets were alive with the weekend crowd. Couples strolling hand in hand, laughter echoing between storefronts. I passed the coffee shop where we'd had our first date. The barista recognized me and offered a sympathetic smile. I tipped my head toward her, willing the memory of Emily's face to fade. But even as I sipped my latte, her eyes flashed back at me behind my eyelids. That night, Emily emerged with the dress pressed and folded in her arms, worry etched into her features. She sat next to me on the couch, knees nearly touching mine, and didn't say anything for the longest time. Finally, she laid the dress on the coffee table, smoothing a wrinkle I couldn't see. I want to make this right, she whispered, voice raw. I swallowed around the lump in my throat, the same lump that had refused to let me eat dinner. I don't know if I can believe you, I admitted. I watched her shoulders stiffen. I need you to help me understand why you stayed in that dress all night, why you didn't call me, why you snapped at me when I finally sent that text. I paused, struggling to keep the anger from my voice. Why did you choose him over me? Even for a second. Her eyes glistened with tears, and she reached for my hand. I panicked, she said. I thought if I told you you'd hate me, but I realize now that hiding it hurt more. She took a breath. I love you, and I messed up. I'll do anything to earn your trust back. I let her words hang between us, the question of forgiveness drifting unanswered in the lamplight. The dress on the table was a reminder that some stains couldn't be washed out. But maybe, just maybe, a new pattern could emerge if we were both willing to try. That night, after we'd sat in silence while the TV played reruns neither of us was watching, I finally spoke out the only thing that felt true. I don't know if I can trust you again. My voice trembled and the words felt like stepping off a cliff. Emily didn't answer right away. She just reached for my hand, fingertips warm and insistent against my own. I understand, she said softly, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We fell into a conversation that stretched past midnight, neither of us blinking as the apartment grew colder around us. I asked questions I'd rehearsed 100 times in my head. Why didn't you call me? Were you scared of what would happen if you told me? What if I hadn't found those photos? With each answer, I felt myself teetering between anger and something more fragile. Relief that she hadn't been lying about everything. She told me about the panic that hit her when her heel broke, about the way Josh's reaction had felt safe for a second, a soft orbit around her own guilt. She cried for the first time since she'd come home, and I watched tears pool at the corner of her eyes, evidence of the regret she'd carried all day. By the time dawn's pale light seeped into the living room, we had drawn up a plan together. We'd see a counselor, 2 sessions a week, at least for the next month. We'd lay out our phones on the kitchen table every morning so nothing could hide in the shadows. We'd write letters to each other on days when talking felt too raw. And Emily promised to retire that navy dress forever, folding it into a box she'd mail back to my mom. She'd picked it out for her, a gift to erase the memory of what it had come to mean. In the weeks that followed, things wavered. There were moments when I'd catch Emily laughing at something silly, a dog jogging on a treadmill, a drunk friend's voice message, and feel the old spark flicker behind my chest. There were other times when she'd look at me with that same haunted expression I'd seen in the album photos, and I'd realize that forgiveness is something you have to practice. Like learning to walk across a tightrope. One Sunday afternoon, we found ourselves back on Chris's rooftop where we'd first met. The city skyline stretched blue and bright, and Emily wore a simple sundress, mint green, nothing too fancy. She slipped her hand into mine as the breeze lifted her hair, and I leaned my head on her shoulder, wondering if trust could ever truly be rebuilt. But in that moment, with her heartbeat steady against my temple, I decided that some stories, no matter how bitter, can still unfold into something sweeter if you're willing to keep turning the pages together. By the time autumn's first leaves began drifting down, Emily and I had settled into a new rhythm, one built on honesty instead of assumptions. We kept our morning ritual, 2 steaming mugs of coffee at the kitchen island, phones set face up until we were both out the door. Some days, the silence felt too loud, each small gesture heavy with the weight of what we'd been through. Other days, it felt light, as if the very air between us had grown softer. One chilly Saturday, we drove out to my parents' lake house for a weekend escape. The drive was quiet at first, Emily catching her reflection in the rearview mirror, me tracing the yellow lines on the winding road. When she reached forward and slipped her hand into mine, I realized how much I'd missed the simplicity of her touch. At the lake, we kicked off our shoes on the dock and leaned against the wood railing, watching the water ripple gold in the late afternoon sun. Emily laughed when a stray breeze lifted her hair across her face, and I caught the flash of that old spark, the one that had drawn me in the first place. It didn't erase the pain, but it reminded me why we fought so hard to stay. That evening, bundled in flannel shirts, we built a fire by the water's edge. I handed her a thermos of hot cider, and as she sipped, she looked up at me with quiet gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, voice soft but certain. I smiled and squeezed her hand. "Thank you for choosing honesty," I replied. When the stars came out, we sat wrapped in a single blanket, legs intertwined, and talked about our future. The apartment we'd buy, the trips we'd take, the possibility of a family someday. We knew trust wasn't a destination but a journey, one we'd walk together through the dark and toward the light. As the fire crackled low and the night air turned crisp, I kissed her forehead and whispered, "I love you, more than any dress or moment could ever change that." She leaned into me, and in that final moment I understood that forgiveness wasn't forgetting, it was choosing, every day, to believe in something stronger than doubt. And together we were ready to keep writing the next chapter, one honest page at a time.